Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, season 3 killing time is here. That's right, we're putting the knife in season 3 and talking about the entire Scream franchise on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from a little town called Woodsboro. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. So we're going to unpack all the goriest questions that you have for us and try to come up with answers in the hopes that you can make fun of us on the internet if we don't say what you like. That is your right. So there's only one person I trust to list off a long number of movies that are horror related that Ghostface needs to know. The one, the only, Gena Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gena?
I think I'm up to that task.
I think you are too.
There's one thing I like doing is listing things in seemingly random order that means nothing to anybody but me.
Yeah, no, that works for me. I don't know. It's always a little bittersweet to say goodbye to a franchise that we've been covering. We went into season 3 with this being a Scream being a possibility. We didn't start off with it. We kind of wanted to do things differently since we had been trapped in the franchise mold for so long. And so we kind of sauntered into Scream rather than, coming in with guns a-blazing. That being said, it worked out perfectly because we started talking about it, and then like literally weeks later they announced, oh, Scream 5 is happening. I'm sorry, Scream 2022 or whatever the fuck it is.
Scram
is happening. Cream.
Cream.
5 cream.
5 creme if you're French.
So it just worked out perfectly, and I'm glad we did it because honestly, it was refreshing to talk about a non-80s dominated franchise, something that was unto itself, that commented on slashers, but also was very good at it. The highs were extremely high, and the lows were Scream 3. And then pretty much, I mean, even Scream 3 has the temerity to constantly point the finger at its executive producer and say, this guy should be in jail. Like already that bumps it up a full star.
Yeah, I was going to say that the 3 is the low point of the series, but that's still better than a lot of high points in other franchises.
Yes, but people would kill to have a Scream 3 level, star rating, I think, most days. I think it was disappointing at the time, but again, I also think that horror fans, like all fans, right? You have a large bevy of people who just enjoy it. And a number of people who are like, isn't this great? Or I've seen this movie. And have you checked out so-and-so? And you're like, oh, this is wonderful. And a very small vocal subsection that are complete assholes who, for reasons I can't quite understand, are very dedicated to telling you, a person who spent hours and hours and hours taking notes on these fucking movies, that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a small group, but what they lack in numbers, they make up in volume.
Yeah, and balls. They just
and aggressiveness.
Yeah,
because these things are very, very serious, and you should definitely treat the masked killer movies with the respect that they are entitled to.
Right. Yeah. I just, it's hard for me to believe that I can be shouted at constantly. And I think it's a bit of a joke. My whole Jason should never be in a jacket thing. People have legit answers to that. And I know the reason why they were put in a jacket in those movies specifically. But when someone goes, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm like, fucking check the record, my man.
Well, it's a question of I didn't ask, for one thing, and one thing that you can always count on Twitter is if just kind of, or if you're just mulling over a question you may have once had about a movie or something that never sat right with you, there's always somebody that's very happy to provide some sort of explanation. And generally my response to that is, I didn't ask.
Yeah, I'm having a monologue. You would like to have a conversation. And that's not always the case. Sometimes I just want to proclaim something out loud. Also, and we learned this long ago when we joined the Flophouse Facebook group. And that is, everyone has the ability to just scroll the fuck on by. If it's time for you to get mad about something, do that in private. You don't necessarily have to rip someone's innards out in a pool chair just because you have a different opinion. Like, it's okay. It's movies. It's just movies, everyone. Don't lower the fucking tone.
Anyway, Scream.
Sorry, went a bit randy there for a second.
We're preparing ourselves for the inevitability that whatever happens with Scream 5, and they're playing things pretty close to the vest as to who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, who's even in it. But you can all be assured that because horror movie fans, many of them, would like to insist that while you should try something new, you should also not divert from the original formula in any way at the same time.
Yes.
Which is an impossible task.
Yes. They are both equal parts. Why don't you ever do anything new crossed with not like that?
Exactly. Yeah. Not like that is the general response. And then when you've got movies that absolutely give in to fans in every way possible, you end up with cringing embarrassments like Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I still have resisted that particular temptation, even if I did have it. I think I'll, I still haven't seen a Venom movie. It just
I will not hear a cross word about the Venom movies. Those movies are wonderful.
They're not for me. They were not aimed at me. They didn't say we got to make sure this Venom movie really captures the Patrick Hamilton market. That's not a consideration. I know enough about the Venom character in general to go, I don't feel it necessary. It could be great, and it could be the most terrible thing in the world. It doesn't matter to me. And because it doesn't matter to me, there are other things that do. I got a Blu-ray of a movie called Dead Space that I've never heard of before from Scream Factory. I'm going to pop that in at some point. You know why? Because that interests me. Venom doesn't. So why make a lot of time and effort to watch it?
But Patrick, we like so many of the same things.
That may be true, but Venom is one of those things that I probably have more of a history with, considering his comic book origins. And as a comic book dude, I am not a Venom guy, and that's fine. It doesn't make me better, and it doesn't make me worse. It just makes me me.
It makes you a little worse.
Well, these are the slings and arrows. We reached out to our fan bases, and we asked them, hey, what are your questions about Scream as we're about to wrap up season 3? And thank goodness people reached out with actual questions, which was a refreshing change of pace. And we're going to read a few of them here and try to answer them in the best way that we can. First up, we have Hamish at Zombie Ham, the one, the only. They ask, which scary movie would you want to be watching when Ghostface kills you, Gena?
Okay, what I would want, or what I think would be the movie I'd be watching when I get murdered?
It's which scary movie would you want to be watching? So
Ghostface
comes in and you want to make sure that they when they drive a knife into your body or head or feet, for that matter.
Oh, not my feet. No.
Oh, yeah, it's listen, I'm not going to tell Ghostface what to do. Like, first off, it's multiple people. How would I even get in contact with them all? But this prototypical Ghostface appears and is going to murder you while you're watching a scary movie. So what do you want to go out on?
Yeah. Now, see, do I want something, that I genuinely like and wouldn't mind, ascending to heaven while I'm watching it?
Right.
You'll note that I'm fairly certain I'm going to heaven.
I have it on good authority.
Or, would it be something ironic? Like I've never seen, like you said, that the Venom movies aren't for you.
Yes.
The Human Centipede movies are not for me.
Yeah.
I will likely never, ever watch them.
That's a big bummer. Yeah. Who wants to go out on that?
But that would be the one time I said, you know what, I guess I'll finally check out one of them, their Human Centipede movies. That would be when I would meet my demise. But
so this is like a hard luck case. You're living a Ziggy life in some way.
Exactly. But if we're talking like something I personally would be all right, being the last thing I see before I die.
Yeah.
God, it could be any horror movie. Don't have to be he didn't say it's supposed to be a slasher
movie.
Any
horror movie. It's a scary movie. It just has to be scary.
Probably my favorite is American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, that's a good one to go out on. Once again, the director of that film should be in jail on manslaughter charges, but that's neither here nor there. It's a great movie. The obvious answer for me is the 1988 version of the Blob.
It's a good one.
It's a good one.
Now, do you want it? Do you want to be stabbed, or do you want to be like you flattened by a blob tentacle like a Looney Tunes character?
If I had to choose, I find the Blob intensely scary as a death. I don't like slow digestion, which really seems to be the way those people go out. They're like drowning in alien goo. I think I'm gonna take stabbing over something like that.
Being blobbed?
Yeah, being blobbed does not seem soup's fun. That's for certain.
You have to be really into that movie too to not hear a blob come in.
True. A blob is not something that I'm honing in on necessarily for hidden details. I don't know that it has a bunch, but I sure do enjoy watching it.
I mean, I'm sure you live in a house with 2 other people and a dog. I think they would alert your presence to the blob.
Yes. I'm sure someone would send me a text.
There's a blob in here.
I would leave the office now. A blob is about.
Dad, there's a blob outside.
Dad, there's a blob on the ring. Oh, boy. So our next question comes to us from the only Patrick Hackett from the Facebook group. And of course, returning champion Brian Collins. They basically had the same question. If Jay and Bob exist in the world of the Scream movies, as seen in Scream 3, how can they also exist in the world where Scream movies are being made, as seen in 2001's Jay and Silent Bob Strike? Is the first one Strike Back? I think it is.
Yeah.
So there's the conversely, does Scream then exist in the View Askew universe, or do Jay and Silent Bob exist in the Scream universe?
I like this question, but I hate being reminded of that moment because I think that's probably like the lowest moment in Scream 3. It's like there was just a time where they just showed up in things, and it's like it's just, God, come on.
They were filming at the same time, and they just like traded cameos, I guess, is what's going on here. And I know they're setting it in the world of a movie studio, which is why, in my mind, before rewatching the clip, I thought perhaps I could say that it's not Jay and Silent Bob, but it is in fact the actors portraying.
Yeah, that's what I've always kind of interpreted it as.
And yet, Jason Mewes slaps his scene partner on the shoulder and says, Silent Bob. So he's distinctly calling it out for the olds in the audience who don't get what the kids are into.
I can kind of imagine that in real life, Jason Mewes would just give up on trying to remember Kevin Smith's name, just call him Silent Bob all the time.
Yes, I also agree. I just think it's more a Jason Mewes, Kevin Smith cameo than it is a Jay and Silent Bob for my, picadillos, because the way they act in that scene is much more true to who they are, as opposed to the Jay and Silent Bob, in which their ooga booga eyes are coming out of their skulls every second. And when they run fast, cartoon wind appears behind them.
Yeah, not everything about Generation X was great.
We had our high points. There's some great tunes. Again, for my money, the funniest thing that ever occurred in that sort of universe is the animated Clerks television show, which lasted 6 episodes and is legitimately funny once you get past the pilot.
I have not seen it. I have watched all of the movies, and you want to talk something that has ever diminishing returns. There you go.
I agree with you. It seemed Clerks does seem very fresh for the time.
Sure, yeah. Clerks in itself is fine. Again, extremely painfully mid-90s, but fine for what it was. But then you've got when everything becomes real fucking self-congratulatory, then it starts getting insufferable.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. They have not worn as well for me either. So let us then move on to a question from the one, the only Margaret on Twitter at Margaret546021010. And they ask, who is the best character that isn't one of the main trio? And which killer is the most deranged / psychotic? I would also add, of the Holy Trinity, which is your favorite character? So what would you like to tackle first?
Let's go with favorite of the main trio.
Okay.
For me, it's got to be Dewey.
Really?
I love Dewey. I do.
And I mean, where does this come from? This exact Dewey love? Do you think
he's just he's just got such a core decency about him?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I never really kind of bought him and Gail as a couple, to be honest with you. Like, I get they were attracted to each other,
right? Yeah,
but not as a long-term couple, because I think Dewey, would want nothing more than to marry a hometown girl, have some babies, be the sheriff, and just live a very quiet life. Yeah, where Gail is a go-getter and she wants more than that. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're not, their long-term goals aren't suitable for each other. Mm-hmm. But I think that Dewey, he is aware of his limitations, but also he's not as dumb as people tend to think that he is. Right. Because, I mean, it's his niceness and his somewhat naive nature are mistaken for being stupid, which neither of those things are true. He's not stupid. He's in fact very brave. Yes. To the point of recklessness a little bit.
I think recklessness a lot of it, but yes, yeah.
But I mean, he means well. He doesn't want to see anybody hurt.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things this franchise has always done well is you kind of see how this sort of thing takes an effect on people after a while. Sure. And, with each movie, Dewey gets a little more worn down, and you really see it starting to take a toll on him. And I think that makes him a very believable character that you really end up empathizing with, even, if in the first movie he comes off as kind of a boob.
Yeah. I think Scream has a distinct advantage in this. Like, we can't say that we've really seen growth from Friday the 13th characters or from Nightmare on Elm Street characters because they don't repeat.
Right.
Scream is that wonderful, singularity or in the slasher franchise, where the same people are playing the same roles over multiple decades, and you see how different writers treat them, how they mold themselves after the times that they find themselves in, not to the degree that Chucky does, but I think in an interesting way. And as much as this entire franchise is about Sydney, the character that I get the most out of from the Holy Trinity would be Gail. She finds the most personal growth. Her story is interesting because it extends beyond Woodsboro and then finds itself right back in Woodsboro. I don't know. There's something about Gail that's super interesting as she is portrayed, and the things that she's asked to do and how her character adapts to every situation. I really like Gail. Gail's not a likable person, but I do really like Gail.
No, I mean, she's not likable, but she's not a one-note character either.
Sure.
She does, and again, this is something that develops, over time and over the franchise, that, while she is predominantly a ambitious to a fault person, she does, have some sense of remorse for, the hurt that her ambition has caused people.
Yeah.
The events of the movies have also taken its own toll on her. She's just better at hiding it than Dewey is.
Yes.
And it's, yeah. She could easily just be the sort of, bitchy, catty character. And that's why I think that's why one of the reasons that I feel that I didn't like what they did with her character in 3 and 4. I think for the setting up that her and Judy were in some sort of, little triangle with Dewey, I didn't buy that at all. Like, right. Like there was no reason that she had to feel threatened by Judy, because Dewey is desperately in love with her, and would not even dream of stepping out on her with another woman.
I do wonder whether or not she actually has a legit beef with Deputy Judy, or the external factors of Sydney showing back up in town as a published author somehow is the unmet need that has her lashing out at Judy. Like, she stores that Judy is secretly in love with her husband and everything, but I don't think she legitimately feels threatened about it. But under this other stressful situation where she cannot find true purpose for herself, and then sees this other person she has had so many life experiences wrapped up in these many Ghostface adventures, that she that is what is really needling her, and Judy is the pressure point that she uses to release that tension.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Yeah, I'll buy that.
I mean, I'm talking out my ass, but it's possible. So let's then get into this next question, which is, who is the best character that isn't one of the main trio?
Well, I have a feeling I know what your answer is going to be. So I am going to dig back to the first one, and I'm actually going to say Stu. Which is interesting, because I hated Stu the first time I watched, and not just because he turned out to be a psychotic killer. I just thought he was exceedingly irritating.
Sure.
But he has really grown on me over the years, and now he's become my favorite supporting character.
There's a thing that sort of happens when a performer reaches a white hot moment where you're like, I don't know that I get it, why people are into them. And I think that can sometimes affect your read of the type of performances that they give at that time, because Hollywood is so relentless with making an it guy, an it girl, and they just throw it in your face. And they reach a status where people are like, I don't like that person because I'm constantly seeing them.
Right.
I don't have a personal stake in them. Fuck that person. And it sucks for the person who is that it person at any given time, because you essentially become, Twitter's main character to a certain degree, just on a meta scale. And it sucks for them as an individual. But I can totally see that. I mean, it's a great fucking performance. Top notch.
Yeah. I mean, he really just and one thing that Scream has over other slasher franchises is that everybody in these movies is giving 150%. They're doing their best work. They look absolutely delighted to be there. They're just really just putting so much juice into their performances that everybody is kind of a great character in their own way. Even the characters that you're supposed to hate, like Parker Posey's character in part 3.
Yes. But she's giving such a fucking performance.
Right.
It is.
You hate her so much that you end up loving her.
Yes. I mean, yeah, she's definitely right up there because she's making a meal out of whatever's on her plate there. But that is also inherently Parker Posey.
Right. She's very often the best part of a lot of mediocre movies.
Yes. And she's also the best part of great movies.
Well, yes.
As something that she has the capacity to do. I'm somewhat torn. I mean, very easily, I could go with a Parker Posey. I could go with a Sarah Michelle Gellar as Cece in Scream 2. And I think she does a very good job in that role. As good as I Know What You Did Last Summer? No. But then again, that's a main role here. Here she's she's coming up to bat, a pitch hitter, basically. So I'm going to go back to my original one. And I don't know what you thought what I was going to do, but maybe this is it. And that is the cheerleader in the bathroom from the original Scream.
Wow. Okay. That's not at all what I was thinking of.
I love that fucking performance. She owns that scene as if she has been cast as the main character. And in her own life, she is the main character. I think she makes that little scene fucking come alive. Like, you want to know what's going on there. You never see her again, and you never see her before that. And she fucking owns that moment in what could arguably be said as a kind of perfect movie. It's pretty amazing. Now I want to know who you thought I would talk about.
I thought you were going to say Kirby.
Oh, yeah. Kirby is up there 100%. I do love Kirby, but weirdly enough, and as much as I might want Kirby to return either in this next movie or another movie or whatever, I love Kirby as a character. What I have come to, I think, realize over talking about these movies is that Kirby is actually a character you're asked to love, you grow to love. She makes a lot of great decisions. She's put in terrible circumstances and does the best that she can. She's adorable. She's feisty. She's smart. And the thing is, you can be a great person and have terrible shit happen to you, because how many great people in our lives have terrible shit happen to them that are they do not deserve any of that fucking stuff, any of it.
Right.
And yet life, like Ghostface, says your time is up. I'm giving you terrible circumstances that you can live through or might not. And I could give you dozens of names right now of people who are legitimately great people who've been given just a shit fucking deal. And to a degree, I think Kirby is somewhat justified actually dying in Scream 4, because sometimes you don't get what you want. Right.
I mean, you can't always, you got to zag on the audience sometimes.
Yes. And certainly Dewey and Gale are two examples of people who might not have made it through any other movie. And Dewey was absolutely supposed to not make it. So it's interesting from that standpoint to make a character who so vividly deserves more screen time and deserves to be added to the echelon not make it, because Well, that's fucking life, man. And I think that makes her death more poignant as a result.
Yeah, I agree.
Which killer is the most deranged or psychotic in your mind?
Well, I feel like the obvious answer would be Debbie Salt.
Yes.
This is Mrs. Loomis from
Mm-hmm.
part 2. But I actually I was thinking about it when you sent me the questions earlier. And I think, honestly, I got to go with Jill from part 4. Because I think she just has the stupidest reason for wanting to just becoming a serial killer. That she wants to be Instagram famous. I mean, Mrs. Loomis, her brain is broken.
Yeah.
From her son being a murderer and then getting killed himself. Billy's brain is broken from what he's been through, and then you've got I can't really explain Mickey's motivation.
I think it's also stupid. He is the male Jill 100%.
Yeah, most of these the variation of Ghostface are revealed as having some sort of motivation that has to do with revenge. Now, I'm not saying that killing for revenge is good. I'm just saying,
it's understandable.
It's a common motivator in people committing murder. Yeah. But I want a lot of Facebook followers. I want to be Instagram popular. I'm like, wow, okay. Now, I'm not saying that wouldn't happen in real life. It absolutely would happen in real life. But it's just such a from left field reason to create all this havoc and come up with this incredibly elaborate plan and get someone to agree to help you with it.
Yeah.
It's just all because you want to increase your internet clout.
Yeah, the way it's voiced is absolutely interestingly predictive of society and whatnot, but it's also not that terrifically far away from that original Scream motivation of, listen, I was going to kill everyone, but then I thought, can I kill everyone in such a way that I can get something out of it? And that I think it's interesting that they're somewhat similar yet different in execution. I do have to go back to Debbie Salt / Mrs. Loomis.
Well, if you're talking just how she presents herself, then yeah, right. I mean, she's like Daffy Duck.
Her reaction to, again, we really went into it, but the whole thing about, Sydney's mom being this epicenter of so many people, really just going overboard about her sleeping around is like fucking bug nuts.
I mean, adultery can cause some problems, but it doesn't usually result in multiple murders over decades.
Multiple decades. That is the thing that is truly
in different towns.
Right.
Yeah, where the person targeted was not even the person who committed the adultery.
And we never really see what Mrs. Prescott is all about. Like, we see her as a mind ghost in a window and old pictures, but we have zero idea how she could have this hold over not only individuals that she interacted with, but an entire town in the aftermath. It's just, wow, people are fucking obsessed with that woman and who she's sleeping with.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, this is the first time in this town that you've had a scandal like this? But that doesn't seem likely.
No, it does not seem likely at all. But of course, we don't go to the movies to see what's likely. We go to see what is unlikely. And as such, Merle, the one and only Merle from our Facebook group, asks, do you like scary movies? And sometimes I wonder. I do wonder when I see somebody say, oh, it's a terrible time for horror movies. There are no good horror movies right now. And I'm like, the fuck timeline are you on?
Well, again, it is, let us not, drink deep from the well of elevated horror once more.
Sure.
Because we have talked about that, and how nobody really knows what it means.
True. Yeah.
I think it is both used, it's used in two different ways, both by people who are embarrassed to say they liked a horror movie, so they applied this label to it to make it seem different from a regular horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also applied to people who, as a disparaging description, that it's not a horror movie because it's slow moving, or because it's not gory, or because it's more psychological. So you apply it to unconventional horror movies, which I'm not even sure what's a conventional horror movie.
That's a really good question, because it is such an expandable genre. It allows you to do all sorts of things and tackle subjects in all sorts of ways. And there's just,
I wonder, if David Cronenberg had started making movies now, his movies would almost certainly be described as elevated horror.
Yes, 100%. That he is playing in the sandbox of sleaze and genre, but elevating it to different levels with his interesting takes on modern society and our dependence upon technology and our relationship to our own bodies and all this, shit that is very much part and parcel for what he does. But I do think there are people who only like a certain kind of horror movie, but still want to tell everyone, I love horror movies. Or the other part, which is, I think, a little bit more prevalent, especially in this era in which people, it's hard to empathize sometimes. But I do think a big part of horror movie enjoyment is having empathy for the people you find the situation, people who find themselves in the situation as presented.
Yes, I think people, a lot of people don't want to see that horror. They just want to see people standing around doing something stupid and getting an X in their forehead.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't.
Or then they complain that that's the only thing delivered to them because that's the only thing they seek out.
Right. They don't want to see. I mean, yeah, it's become kind of a joke now at this point that, horror is about trauma.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could a lot of things fall under the umbrella of trauma.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
A wonderful movie that came out this past year that unfortunately did not get the attention it deserved was The Night House.
Yes, I agree.
Which is very much about mental illness. And it is not the first, it is not the 100th horror movie in which the quote unquote monster in it is mental illness. But it was approached in a way that was so unique and so unsettling, particularly if you have struggled with mental illness, that, I mean, go ahead, make hundreds more of these. If you could put like a personalized spin on it, by all means, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. I would rather watch more of that than more, faceless killer, stalks a party.
Yeah. Yes.
Because those movies don't scare me.
Right. And the other thing is like, I think I'm more susceptible to being scared by a lot of different movies because I do try to enter every single one of them with the idea that what if I were in this situation?
Right.
If this person flesh and blood? Now, we come at the movies we talk about here with a very irreverent tone because that makes for a more fun show. But, The Night House is a particular example where it requires a level of empathy from the viewer in order to get the most out of your experience. And
right, if you're gonna watch a movie like that and complain, well, nothing happens. It's like, well, actually, a lot of things happen. Right. It's just that you came in this movie with a certain expectation. Well, this is what a horror movie looks like, and this is what a horror movie does, and this movie doesn't look like or do those things. Ergo, it's not a horror movie.
Yeah. And as such, I think, there are different purposes for different horror films, and there are films that are absolutely built with a popcorn ideal in mind, in which I'm going there to have a fun roller coaster ride, and there's nothing fucking wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a horror movie being PG-13. There's nothing wrong with a horror movie being the goriest thing you ever came across.
There's nothing wrong with a horror movie that you changes up characters so that they're women or people of color. Yes. So please, I beg of you, don't stop losing your fucking minds every time that happens.
So fucking dumb. I apply this measurement to everything, but in particular when it became a thing with Marvel films. And that is, if you list, just for example, the most important aspects of Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four, well, he's cocky. Well, he's irreverent. He doesn't take things seriously. He likes to take risks. He's a player with the women. This and that. At no point does it matter whether or not it's a white guy or a black guy. All that matters is that character is intact. So if that character is intact, played by a dynamic black performer, how am I fucking suffering for this? There are characters in which their race is absolutely core to who they are. Luke Cage cannot be played by just anyone, but Johnny Storm, absolutely. And the same thing is true here. People need to get past the fact that the thing that you liked, that you decided in your mind, was only for you and people who look and act and think like you. Wake the fuck up. You're not alone. Have some empathy and enjoy the things you supposedly enjoy. It doesn't mean you like every movie, but you can't dislike a movie you haven't fucking seen because there's an element of it that you think was so sacrosanct it has changed simply because a woman or a non-binary person or a person of a different race is playing this particular role. Just fuck right off with this shit.
We didn't know this was going to be a ranty episode, did we?
We're really getting randy up in this place. On Twitter, at the one, the only, at PJ18, PEEJAY 18, asked which Ghostface took the most beatings or stumbles the most.
Oh, that's a good one. I want to say Mickey was the one that was in the car accident, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna say Mickey because Mickey should have been fucking dead after that accident.
I think that is a legitimate answer. When I toyed around with him, but I also think Roman Bridger has to be added to this because he is the only Ghostface in that film, presumably, and as such takes every single punch, kick, fall, like. He's not sharing any of that damage with anybody else. And there's no way he should show up looking like he hasn't fucking had his clock cleaned by half the cast in that movie. And yet, there he is, walking around.
I always wanted these movies. Like, they take the mask off. They just look like, like a cartoon character. They got the black eye and like the big knot on their head. And like, this is
like a bomb has gone off near them and they just have the soot around the soot around the eye holes.
Yeah, missing a couple teeth. They're like barely standing up and kind of like, sort of wavering on their feet.
Just one of these ghost faces to go, all right already.
It's like, hold on a second.
Give up.
Hold on a second.
Catch my breath.
See, I couldn't be a ghost face because the minute like somebody like stepped on my foot or punched me to something, I'd be like, ow, come on.
I cannot keep it together. We ran through an airport to try to make a flight and somehow we did, but it required us to run up go up four stories on a broken escalator.
Oh my God.
In the Dallas airport with masks on, of course. And I fucking ran up those fucking things. And yeah, I was breathing heavy when I got to the top, but I was also like, well, I'm not going to keel over. So I'm doing pretty fucking well here. Like, you couldn't stop me from just patting my own back about how well I did this shit. Conversely, Debbie Salt / Mrs. Loomis is the one who gets the way with the least resistance as Ghostface.
Yeah, she kind of leaves the hard work to Mickey.
Yes. Yeah, he's really taking it for the team, where she's like, well, I'll drag one guy into a van and I'll kind of like dance around a school rehearsal. But for the most part, I'm really working on Gail in the Debbie Salt guys. Tori, the only Tori from our Facebook group, asks, what posters do you think 1990s Dewey had hanging up in his bedroom?
Dewey was definitely like a Blues Traveler guy.
I think it's entirely possible that Dewey became a Blues Traveler guy, certainly by the point that the movie takes place, 100%. But ultimately, Dewey's bedroom would be done up in the guise of him as a teenager. And that is why I believe he's got MTV metal band fever. He's got your Def Leopards, your Poisons, your White Snakes, your Bon Jovi type groups. Just
he's got a Lita Ford poster, but he makes sure to hide it when his mom comes into the room.
Right. Yeah. That's on the door. So when she opens it,
exactly.
It's hidden from view. Yeah.
She's got the snap on Tool girl.
Whoever's in that cherry pie video, that gal. Sure. Her second question is, do you think Scream would have worked as well if Drew Barrymore had actually kept the initial role that she was cast in as Sydney?
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Okay.
I think that, people, I don't remember now. I wish I remembered. I could remember if when I saw Scream in the theater, that if I knew going in or not that Drew Barrymore actually was not in the movie very long. I feel like I did know, so that probably took away some of the shock of the scene.
Right.
But I just think that was such a clever thing too, because she's on the poster.
Yeah, she's center of that deep.
Yeah, you are really given the impression that she is the star of this, and she's also was at the time the biggest star in it. Now, granted, she was starting.
Courtney Cox is in that running, but of course, this was a time in which people jumping from TV to movies was a rarer beast.
And this was, now to be fair, this was Drew Barrymore. This was supposed to be her comeback role, because she had been in a lot of garbage, some of which we've talked about.
Yes.
And this was the first like mainstream movie she had made in a long time that didn't require her to have an uncomfortable sex scene with a man twice her age.
Yeah, she's in a lot of sexy gal roles before this, where people are just really, they can't believe that the little girl from E.T. has breasts. That's what it seems to be about.
But now she is playing, who seems to be, now granted, we don't really get to know her that well, but she seems to be a pretty ordinary high school student. Yeah. And, I think that for audiences who didn't know going in that her time on screen was limited, I mean, they must have absolutely shit themselves.
Oh, I went in on Friday night. We went after work at Universal to what was then the Cineplex Odeon on City Walk, and fully anticipated her, she's the lead of the movie. She's at the front of the V. And I was like, oh, I love this. I don't know what's going to happen next. How fun. Like that was genuinely, not only did I enjoy the thrills and spills of that particular scene, but the fact that it ends with the biggest movie star in the movie dying right away.
Right. It sets the stage for no one is safe.
Yes. 100%. 100%. And the other element of this that has to be considered is if Drew Barrymore had stayed in that role, we would not have gotten Scream 2 in the manner in which we did.
Right.
Because the reason why she switched roles was because she had been cast in a bunch of movies, and one of them, like, she had developed. Like, after this, you have Wedding Singer, Ever After, Never Been Kissed. Like, her ascension is bubbling up underneath this. People can tell the potential, and she makes the right decision, which, once again, it has to be said, Drew Barrymore, the best producer that the Scream franchise has ever had, because she makes an executive decision that sets the tone for the film and just benefits everyone underneath her on the call sheet.
100%. 100%.
Some person named Megan Sunday, returning champion.
Not her.
I know. She has a question from her very cute child, who asks us, why would anybody wear that scary mask? It is too scary.
I agree. That is a scary mask.
It is.
I think it's much scarier, much more effective than either the Jason or the Michael masks.
Yes. I mean, the Michael mask has it benefits from coming so soon. Like, the only thing that's kind of before it is The Town That Dreaded Sundown to a certain degree. I know there are other mask killers, but there's something soulless, and it's photographed so well in that. But this is the one movie where the mask really sets a tone for the rest of it. Like,
it's a whole thing. You've got the mask, you've got the cloak, which sort of hides if the killer is male or female. It's just a whole effect.
Yes. And because in a whodunit sense, it's the one sort of, it doesn't suffer the it's you syndrome that we have talked about many, many times, but in particular in our beloved Happy Birthday to Me, where that killer is weirdly enough wearing a mask, but
it's
wearing
like
the mask of another person.
It's like some sort of Mission Impossible, like, facial appliance.
Exactly. Again, that's why it's great. Just chalk it up. Wow. What a picture. The other thing about that mask is that the bad news for anyone wearing it is it provides zero peripheral vision to the killer. So the point where I don't think in real life would be able to murder a single person while wearing it.
Probably not, no.
But them's the movies. That being said, the only Jared from our Facebook group asks, do you believe there were actually 2 killers in Scream 3?
You want to take this one first?
I think on a technical level, it would be pretty impossible for Roman to kill all those people and provide alibis for himself, where he would not become an immediate suspect. And the film is so busy doing so many things that's never really brought up. And I think Aaron Kruger, the guy who took over screenwriting duties on that film, is just special enough to think that a single killer in a Scream film is a legit swerve, when it is not. It would be better if he had a killer with legit reason to murder everyone and really actually figure out how to put 2 killers in that movie, because that's sort of the thing with the film, is that you can point the finger at the most likely suspect, but if they have an alibi, it takes them off. Scream is the only one that kind of mines that territory.
Yeah, my answer is more simpler than yours. I just think because it's always been 2 killers, because it's just, it doesn't. I mean, I don't expect these movies to, quote unquote, make sense, but there's just certain times where it literally comes down to this person would have to be in 2 places at the same time.
Exactly. And he kind of does have to be in 2 places.
Right. So that's not possible. There has to be somebody else helping him.
Yes. And as such, you kind of have to wonder who would have the motivation to do that. And I think the obvious suspect would be Lance Henriksen's character of John Milton.
Yes.
Just wanting to figure out a way to make this stab movie actually pop because he's desperate for a hit.
So why not kill some of my actors?
Right. Why not kill some of my actors? I don't like them anyway.
That would do it.
Right. He's meant to be a legit criminal. So why would I not accuse him of murder? And also he's Lance Henriksen. He'll make a deal with the devil just to own a basketball team. Like motherfucker's wild. On Twitter, we have the one, the only Steve at Dr. Annoyed Grunt, and they ask, in the first scene of the original, Ghostface asks Drew Barrymore horror movie trivia about films that came out about 15 years earlier, in terms of Friday the 13th, 16, Halloween, that's even 18. So if the scene were now set in modern day, what mid-2000s questions would Ghostface ask? Would he ask about the puppet's name in Saw? That's possible. Like, who's the killer in Saw 3? I guess might be up in the offing.
Yeah, I mean, what are still the big franchises now? I mean, Saw seems to be losing ground. So it's
yeah, they can't quite. I think what makes Saw so unique is also the thing that is sinking its fortunes. You have to know a bunch of shit about it.
Yeah, it has a lot of lore connected to it. It's much of it very, very dumb.
Right.
Gosh, so that would be 15 years ago. So that'd be like 2007.
2007. I mean, that's the thing. Like, weirdly enough, Scream 4 kind of does this because Kirby is asked this, horror remake, and she lists off an insane amount of 2000s remakes. She lists Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dawn of the Dead, The Hills Have Eyes, Amityville Horror, Last House on the Left, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, My Bloody Valentine, When a Stranger Calls, Prom Night, Black Christmas, House of Wax, The Fog, Piranha. So it's all like, in that sense, it kind of has happened to that degree. I guess what the unmined decade is really the 2010s.
Right. But again, that there wasn't a lot of franchises happening then, except the Saw movies. And you have a lot more ghost-based horror films when it comes to Paranormal Activity and The Conjuring and Insidious. Would you say the Paranormal Activity movies have the same sort of pop culture pull as the Friday the 13th movies would have in the 90s?
I would say part of it is that they benefit to the same degree that Marvel benefited from their films being rerun on cable when cable was still a force.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Conjuring movies have been one of those things that have been on Netflix a lot. Like, Warner Brothers licensed them to Netflix a bunch. And they now have all these spin-off movies. There are people who are Conjuring people who love that franchise. Is it as vocal and pronounced as Saw because every film is Saw? No. But when their spin-offs are making 50 mil on an opening weekend, you're like, well, fuck. That people are into that shit.
Yeah, the field has so widened that's hard to say.
Yeah. It definitely has some level of pull, and yet when Juan comes out, you would figure that people would follow him from film to film, and they were like, "No, this is too far." You're like, "Do you not like to have fun?" Like,
yeah, my favorite criticism was, "Oh, he didn't realize he was making a bad movie." It's like, no, he absolutely realized. No. He knew what he was doing.
A type of movie. He is making a gonzo. He's pulling from all the things that have influenced him.
When you have a movie in which a character sort of has like an evil twin, and you have a version of Where Is My Mind, like an orchestral version of Where Is My Mind, you know what the fuck you're doing.
Yes. No, he's very intentionally making that movie. He knew exactly the tone he wanted to strike and went about doing it. And you cannot have an emotional reaction to it and go, that didn't work for me. I just got nothing out of it. Okay, sure. But you cannot say that he was blind. That is not like doing that thing that I love from a truly bad movie, where everyone goes into it with the intention of, oh my God, this is the next Star Wars. Buckle up, everybody. People are going to love every minute of what we're doing here. He knew that he would lose some people along the way when you're referencing a movie like Carnosaur in your first 2 minutes. This is very much a type of schlock that he wanted to do. He strikes out that tone and nails it throughout. It's not inconsistent. And so therefore that tells you he knows what he's doing there.
Right, exactly.
I think that's one of those movies that's going to grow in terms of its cult status, because it's such a 50-50 opinion thing that those who love it are just going to build it up as a moment over time. And the day that thing came out, Twitter was so much fucking fun. And we had such a great conversation just watching it on separate coasts.
Yeah. Well, it's, you had mentioned earlier the whole, no, not like that argument. Right. People have, a lot of horror fans have complained that horror is too safe now, that it is not gory anymore, that you don't get a lot of, old fashioned, blood and guts. And then you've got Malignant, which is outrageously violent. It is so violent. All you can do after a certain point is laugh, because it's just like, oh my God, she just broke someone's arm and stuck him in the face with a broken bone.
I know. Like I can, there's the PG-13 argument again, where someone looks at Happy Death Day to me and goes, well, this isn't gory enough for me. I'm like, yeah, but people need starter horror. Again, like people need to have people can't go from 0 to Malignant. You've got to have something that
go ahead, sorry,
gives them an entree.
Well, that's the thing. People complain, oh, well, movies like Happy Birthday to me or Happy Death Day to me don't, they need to be gorier. And then you have an outrageously gory movie like Malignant, and they're like, well, this is terrible. Right. I was like, well, what do you want?
Right. Unlike people complaining about Scream 4, like there are guts literally falling out of characters for extended periods of time. And are you not entertained is what you scream to the audience. And again, it's an emotional experience. You can't tell somebody you're not in love with the person you proclaim to be in love with. Love and emotions are things you feel. They're not determined by outside, qualifications. So it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for you, but come on.
But you don't get to tell other people that it doesn't work overall. It just doesn't work for you.
Exactly. Yes. That I respect. It does not work for me. It does not work at all. It's kind of like, especially because people try to prove it through quantifiable means, like here. Like today's main character of Twitter saying this scene of these people with these very 50s, 60s mod land speeders. This is not Star Wars. And you're like, fucking George Lucas likes cars. Do you not know this? Is this not?
Oh yeah. Something? My favorite Twitter interaction now is people who post a 10-second clip out of context and be like, wow, this is terrible. Ha ha ha.
What is a great 10 seconds? What is 10 seconds that will I'm sure there are legit examples of that, but there's just, come the fuck on. Movies are a full experience. They are not broken down bits. That's just so stupid. So this brings us to our temporary Scream rankings. What do we rank the movies at at this stage, before next week's episode, in which we will talk about Scream 2022. Gena, are you prepared?
I am prepared.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, why not? You're the special guest.
I am. Okay, well, I'm very special.
In my mind,
I'm very
you
special.
are very special, and you are my guest.
Oh, okay. I'm going to be absolutely uncontroversial and say 1, 2, 4, and 3.
Nailed it in 1. Absolutely. Now, I can get behind the group that would put 2 over 1 because I think 1 and 2 are perfect. I think they're as close to perfect as you can get. They're just at the right levels. They know exactly what movies they are. The first Scream can't be Scream 2 because it's not attempting to be as grand as Scream 2 gets. And Scream 2 just has those amazing suspense sequences. That is what sort of is a slight letdown in 4. Even though 4 is trying to return to the more intimate story of 1, I do think you need at least one of those sequences to rise to the level of Scream 2 in order. But again, these are levels of millimeters,
right?
Like whether it's 214 or 124, or you even sneak in 4 in between, like 241. These are things I can get behind. It's the Scream 3 of it all that it simply does not work as a motion picture for me. I like lots of performances, but it's limited by a bunch of stuff that is out of everyone's control.
Right.
Whereas that lack of control on 2 seems to spur it into just an amazingly incredible motion picture.
Well, I think the problem for me with 3 is, and again, I love Parker Posey's performance in it. I think she's great.
Yeah.
But there are times when she sort of comes off like she's in a different movie.
Yeah.
Her performance is very slapsticky. Like every time she's on screen, like the whole tone of the movie, diverts into comedy, which again, I mean, no one's going to accuse these movies of being very serious. They're not.
No, I mean, and inherently the first Scream is a parody to an extent.
Right. They all have a vein of comedy running through them.
Yeah.
Because you have to, because they have to, because they're self-aware. They're aware that these movies are kind of silly and what people do and the cliches that go in to make you want are silly. So you can't satirize that without having a sense of humor. But I feel that the sense of humor in 3 is a little too broad at times and doesn't quite work.
Yeah. I just don't think they cracked the nut of what exactly that movie was supposed to be. Again, I will always give it to that movie for pointing the finger throughout saying the executive producer of this film is a criminal and should be prosecuted.
Oh yeah. I mean, it definitely gets points for its audacity. I just think that the overall final product was not as good as it could have been.
Yeah. I agree. But then again, as we said earlier, any franchise would just murder to have a film with Scream 3's quality.
I mean, it's still a 3-star movie for me. So which is a lot better than most sequels and other horror franchises get from me.
And love the Nightmare and Friday the 13th franchises as we do. We readily admit that we love them in spite of a lot of things. And there are so many positives for Scream 3 that you can say, I legit love that movie. Like when someone says I love that movie, I'm like, that's an emotional reaction. I get it. So that just about does it. Gena, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television at thespool.net. Coming up by the time I will be reviewing Scream later this month.
Okay.
I also will be reviewing season 3 of Servant on Apple TV Plus.
Ooh.
And I will be doing some coverage in the comfort of my own home of the Sundance Festival at the end of the month.
Wonderful. Good to hear. For those of you who love us, there's ways to show it. You can follow us on social media. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and now on Spotify. Just hit those 3 dots and it'll allow you to rate us if you have listened to a episode in full. That's a great way to do it. Google Podcasts also allows you to do that. And so does Amazon. And you can go to our t-shirt store where we have lots of cool designs. We're working on fun things for the new season. Next week, we will be back talking about the latest Scream, and that will conclude season 3. And then, boy, howdy, we've got great stuff coming up for you. When it comes to season 4, we're not going to let you down. We're going bigger and badder and to places we've never gone before. I can't wait for you to listen and to hear some of the guests that we're going to have on. These are great people, and we're going to have your favorites back as well. You know us. This is what we do. We've got more After Dark coming your way once we hit February, and then the return of Dish by Dish will happen this spring. So that just about does it. For myself and for Gena, the body count will continue. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.